Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Mid-South Wrestling Review for the 29th of May, 1982. Hopefully, you're enjoying the series, and hopefully, you're enjoying wrestling the way that many people would say it was intended to be. I prefer 50s through 1997, mainly because 40s and before that aren't available on television, or at least not videotaped much, but literally anything 50s through 97. For me, 98 is when it all changed. Not that I don't enjoy some independent stuff and Japanese stuff, but the American national product, well, ECW ends in 2000, but the American national product after the end of, or 2001, the American national product after the end of ECW, honestly, for me, has been not my favorite thing. Anyway, we move forward into the continuance of uh, 1982 here, and for those just catching up, Bob Roop is your North American champion. He's a guy who, for the most part, is pretty well seen as the biggest heel in the promotion at the time. Well, Skandar Akbar probably a bigger heel, although not given as much leeway because he's a manager versus an in-ring talent. But anyhow, we move forward into that, and his main feud is with Ted DiBiase, a former friend, or at least of some tie-in several years back. So that's kind of a big thing there. And as we move forward, the idea is DiBiase wants to get another match with his adversary ASAP. And also, that's going to happen here within about a month's time, just about. But DiBiase is still politicking for it here. Junkyard Dog, a big thing in the area at the time, and obviously, worth checking him out because honestly, a lot of times his WWF stuff pales in comparison to what he did before between Calgary and Mid-South. At least a lot of people would believe. Anyhow, we move into the actual match card of this affair, and as my notepad won't open, so we'll move in a second. Anyway, there we go. And there are a couple of notable debuts for wrestling history, posterity, over the next couple of months here in Mid-South. One of which occurs today because it ties into somebody that we've already covered in World Class. And if you haven't checked out the World Class audio series, worth doing that too. Over 340 episodes there. But here, Paul Ellering showing off his strength. He basically shows that he can power press with just about anybody. Again, talking about being impressed with kids, working with kids, and all of that. Ted DiBiase and the Grappler. DiBiase, again, really wants that opportunity back. Grappler, I believe, has picked up a few new holds since coming from the Portland area at the time, and DiBiase still probably, like I said, the biggest babyface in the area. Kicks off on to his opponent and quick kick out. DiBiase stays on the arm, works the arm for the next few minutes. Lots of motion with the grappler. Not a guy who likes to slouch or hang around unnecessarily, but at the same time, they get a lot out of just working the arm. DiBiase stays on the mat, hammer locks, and arm bars and the like. DiBiase still, I mean, it's amazing to me, even if you look at him 82 versus 87, how much being, or 82 versus 89, how much being on the road has really, really aged him. And when I met him in 2007-ish, it was a whole nother level. Anyway, big armbar by DiBiase, and he stays with it again for several minutes. I wish I had been more studied at the time, or more readily studied, I would have asked more questions about his Mid South days. But again, at that point, I was not as studious as I should have been or could have been. Upside down in the corner, Tree of Woe by the Grappler, and it does not look good for DiBiase. I've never really liked the Tree of Woe spot because either the guy has to fall on his head awkwardly or the referee has to get involved in the contest in a interference type manner to get you out of trouble. And neither of these should be true if you are in a competitive athletic endeavor. So, not a fan of the Tree of Woe spot. Never have been. Never will be. Um, it just doesn't make sense, and if it doesn't make sense, I don't particularly like it. Anyway, near fall by the grappler soon after that, and he manages to um, get grabbed in a bear hug, and also kind of a front chancery type maneuver. They're given more time than the average television match here, but I think again because it's DiBiase, that might have something to do with it. Drop down, and they do the double head boink spot together, and that doesn't end very well for virtually anybody. There is a run in by the assassin here. The assassin, of course, a hired gun by uh, Skandor Akbar. DiBiase gets a hold of the assassin. Meanwhile, that although the allegiance between Akbar and the assassin seems to be less than it was, another run in, and then we see Ernie Ladd with a shot to the back with a chair on the grappler, and boom, there we go. And DiBiase gets a win. Now, the introduction of Hangman Rick Harris, which eventually, I believe, becomes Black Bart. And that's important because he is eventually your World Class Championship Wrestling World Champion somewhere down the road, 5 years down the road or thereabouts. So just imagine 5 years changes a lot for most wrestlers. One would imagine Dick Murdoch is his opponent, though, here this week. And of course, he carries a hangman's rope, hangman's noose, whatever you want to call it, which is different than I think would play today. 2020. I don't think carrying around a rope with you and hanging a guy would be very sportsmanlike. But anyway, not that it was sportsmanlike back then either, for that matter. But anyhow, Murdoch frustrated with the attempted pull of the hair. Akbar out with his adversary. Interesting that Akbar is the only manager here in 1982 that we see on a regular basis. I don't know if he was the only manager in the company, although he might have been. But anyhow, we see Murdoch come up with some pretty basic armbar stuff, but again, Murdoch, a guy who's been around the area so well that you almost can use him as a tester, for lack of a better term. A guy who, you bring a new guy into the territory. Hey, can he go? Is he TV ready? Is he TV worthy? Again, several cheat attempts by Akbar. Akbar bringing the military bag of his man's opponent Murdoch into it, and he's kind of walking around with that out there. Murdoch with a duck and hits an elbow to the top of the head, and Murdoch is able to, or if he wants to, kind of can go for a win there, but not exactly as focused as he could be, should be, ought to be, whatever have you. Murdoch manages to get a pinfall victory in a couple of seconds later there, and that leads to, and he takes a shot at Akbar on the way out of things, and Akbar not very happy with that, to say the very least. And so, one man gang and Murdoch are going at it, and that is a match that I'm sure people want to see down the road. Speaking of one man gang, he and Coco Samoa up next. Samoa's been protected, and I don't think that's going to happen here. I think he wrestled Gang one other time on television. Gang, of course, has been protected as kind of the bigger, you know, heel guy, and he would go on to be a big thing in World Class, of course, the World Wrestling Federation, both as the one man gang and Akeem. But here, he's a guy in a big blueberry looking singlet, which I don't think is the most flattering thing for him, but you got to find yourself somewhere, and that's just the way it is sometimes. Anyway, Gang in there kind of using power, the Greco-Roman knuckle lock that virtually no one uses anymore, and Samoa gets his way back up. Samoa manages to hit a forearm off of the Gang and actually bounces off the Gang, which I kind of found funny when I was watching it. And ultimately, kind of that's there. Samoa manages to try to make his way back to his feet, but ends up on the receiving end of a big splash. 1, 2, 3, Gang with your victory here. Then we move into the next in series of matches, which in this case happens to be, let me just take a look at my notes here. We move into Bob Roop and the Assassin versus Mike Sharp and Hudspeth. Now, Hudspeth is not a guy that I know a lot about, and I don't even remember that I caught his first name, but anyway, he's an enhancement talent, new to the area for the most part. Mike Hudspeth. And, maybe a guy that doesn't work out in wrestling, maybe a guy that changes names and I just don't recognize him. Don't really know much about him. Mike Sharp, though, has been a mainstay here in 1982. That doesn't seem to change anytime soon either as we go through deeper into the year. So that's that. A huge Hall of Fame level debut is on this program as well, so stay tuned for that. But this obviously is not the match with it, as very basic stuff here. We kind of continue to go through. Sharp looks relatively good, pretty aggressive on the Assassin, and the Assassin getting pulled around by his face and his mask. Roop not having that much more success than his opponent was, although they do cut off the ring on Sharp for the next little while. We then see Sharp with an arm wringer and then cut off by Roop. Roop manages to try to gain a victory. However, the Assassin with the loaded headbutt, 1, 2, 3, and there's your victory. Speaking of the match that I was mentioning earlier with the guy who would go on to be a major Hall of Famer, Dr. Death Steve Williams, yes, starts out here in 1982. The Turk is his first television opponent. Not wanting to be the Turk in this scenario, to be very honest about it. Dr. Death Steve Williams, of course, a major collegiate athlete, All-American football, All-American wrestler, and a huge, huge guy even here in 1982. Bill Watts is all but gushing over the guy, loves the guy, and you can see right from the beginning that's going to be a long-term friendship, relationship, whatever have you. But Williams with the reverse chinlock. The Turk tries maybe a move or two, but Williams wearing the traditional wrestling singlet and easily does go behind, switches, takes him over with headlocks and all of that. A little bit, obviously, much less experience than your average individual, but he, even here, something like the pick of the leg, and Williams is able to defend it. Williams, of course, with some great suplexes. Even here, he gets a suplex throw or two in. And also what I like is, even though he doesn't have experience, he's grappling and never looks ill at ease as a grappler. Big body slam by Williams. Williams, over the next couple of weeks, becomes extremely adept at finding exactly where he wants to be and who he wants to be in the ring. But that takes, about a month. But for a guy who has a 20-year career or whatever the heck, case is, maybe 25 years, who knows. But anyway, 25-year career, to take a month to find yourself, that's not so bad. Big back body drop by Williams, and Williams sends the guy across the ring into the other corner. It does not look good if you are the Turk. And Oklahoma style stampede 1, 2, 3 and Dr. Death Steve Williams looks like $1,000,000 in his opening victory here. JYD and Mr. Olympia Randy Bass and Jim Starr are your next match here, and there's another star in the final match, so that's kind of interesting. Maybe they're related. Who knows? Anyway, as we've seen several times before, Olympia and Dog do decent matches together. Dog, of course, still your Louisiana champion, and Mr. Olympia, I believe, still your Mississippi champion. Interesting that basically you see power from the Dog early. That is to be expected. Mr. Olympia comes in, does the finesse level stuff, including a gut wrench suplex, and he makes it look easy. Does some sit down stuff with the basic, the back elbow and all of that. And then we see a really quick victory for the Dog and his partner, like super quick. Irish whip and the big thump slam from the Dog, 1, 2, 3, is all we need. And then we go into the final match on this week's program right as we enter the month of June. June is on the horizon, and that's a month when a lot of things change. By the end of the month, things are very different in Mid-South. We'll get into why over the next couple episodes. But Billy Starr and Jesse Barr close out the program. They've got about 4 minutes, maybe 3.5. Starr does some good amateur style stuff early. Hits a knee lift or two, gets what he needs on those, and does a roll up pretty quickly, 1, 2. But Starr able to wrestle pretty well. I actually would be interested in finding out more about Starr. I really would. And we see a short arm scissors by Barr. Barr kind of rolls onto his side, doesn't get what he wants on it, and we do not see a victory for either combatant here. We run out of TV time, but again, that is a great way to make wrestling look more real. In any event, I encourage you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.